Hello, and welcome to the 84 Million podcast. This will be episode 4. Today we have a friend, Luke. He's on Twitter at Luke Wright Main. I have it up here on the screen, and he's also known as Rocket.eth. Pulling it kind of an informal bio here from your Twitter. You're an author at Web3 Domains. You are an architect on the Ethereum Name Server, or ENS, and you're a developer on Ordinals. I mean, that's really what we want to talk about today as well. So we'll leave it at that. Welcome to the show, Luke. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me there. Thank you for the introduction. But let's get started. I'm really excited to dive into Ordinals. I'm very glad you reached out today.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here because I feel that despite me following Litecoin for a while and having one of the websites in the Litecoin ecosystem, I'm not the foundation. We're a kind of an educational volunteer operation at 84million.com. But I'd like to think I know something about Litecoin historically as money, but now we're seeing all sorts of new developments on top of this wonderful blockchain. And that's where you come in here. So I'll start with one of your tweets. We have a tweet from 3/16/23, and it says, Ordinals can be games, music, encoded data, unlockable layers, and you go on. Can you unpack that for us further? Just kind of real basics on what is Ordinal.
Yeah, of course. So Ordinals protocol, basically developed by Casey Rotomore, originally on the Bitcoin chain and then forked over by a bounty program brought by Indigo and then Anthony, one of the devs over here on the Litecoin side of things. But basically what Ordinals are is a protocol that allows you to use software, basically an external wallet that links commands with Litecoin Core's CLI and separate Satoshis or separate Litoshis into 10,000 Litoshi clusters and then inscribe arbitrary data onto one single Litoshi and pack it into that 10,000 structure for padding. And we'll get into that in a little bit and how that all kind of works. But basically, it might not seem very sophisticated at first. And it's like, oh yeah, like we know at Satoshi right away inscribed, what was it? The Chancellor, the brink of bailout. One of the first inscriptions that we ever seen. Yeah. So we knew that it was possible. And the funny thing is with that being possible, we never really saw anybody really use it to do anything other than, maybe put a message here and there on the blockchain. And the Ordinals protocol came along and really changed that and gave it more so an open sourced way for everybody to kind of more so easy and simplify the process on putting any form of data onto a Litoshi or onto a Satoshi. And it's quite cool. Like you can have old games on there. A lot of the games will run either in like a JavaScript or a .html file, which then display on that Litoshi on the blockchain, wherever it is on the blockchain, wherever its location is. It's crazy. You can find it. You could be stumbling upon the blocks and all of a sudden you come across a Doom replica game on a Litoshi or a Satoshi and you're like, what in the world? But yeah, we're going to dive into it. But that's kind of the start on basically what Ordinals are. It's another form of data that we can pack onto the current form of Litoshis and Satoshis, making the networks, I would say, in my opinion, a little more congested, but also I feel like it's going to be, if used for the right reasons and used for the right purposes, it's going to bring a significant amount of value to what we know as more of a kind of a non-fungible, fungible chain, that fungible aspect, bringing that to that. So, yeah.
Interesting. I know you saw, your tweet was recently, or one of your threads was recently shared by the one and only Satoshi Light as well. So he's noticing what's going on Litecoin as well. And it's interesting. And we'll get to your role in a minute, but I believe you put the first ordinal on Litecoin, correct?
No, I did not put the first ordinal on Litecoin. That would be Anthony, the person who forked it.
So he put the
I did
MWEB
put the
paper
first LTC-20.
Okay.
Correct.
So
Yes.
you've been working with
Yep.
Anthony, or you've been in communication with him.
Basically, with been in communication with Anthony, and that's where obviously the Litecoin punks came in. So the first kind of NFT style collection of pictures,
Hmm.
profile pictures on the blockchain, layer one base layer, is that group that we have going there. But
Yeah.
yes, yep.
This is exciting. I'm going to be negative immediately. I mean, we're what 4, 5, 6 minutes into this conversation, and I'll be the devil's advocate,
No, do it, do
or
it.
at least like share some of the concerns that have already been aired out. And I think we're all aware of them too. But it's interesting because the MWEB
Most definitely.
paper was the first inscription on Litecoin, and yet our first episode here, what really launched this whole idea of bringing more ideas in a visual and audio format to our channel to discuss Litecoin, was David Burkett, the coder, who really was responsible for the code to allow MWEB to happen. And he's not a big fan. He's called it block spam. So before we get to more exciting stuff, can you address this idea of block spam?
Yeah.
Are you able to address
You
anything with the
know,
block
I
spam?
will. I am able to address it a little bit here because I feel like I've caused a little bit of the block spam. I will agree on the fact that it is definitely clutter. But the whole premise of the clutter is to trim down the clutter to actually have more so use cases versus just putting data onto the chain. I don't think the intentions right away was that millions of people or millions of inscriptions were going to be inscribed onto the blockchain. And that kind of took, I would say, the whole like Litecoin, Bitcoin world really by surprise, as Bitcoin just surpassed like 3 million inscriptions this week, and Litecoin is about to hit 400,000.
Wow.
So it's a crazy number, and to like address it and to kind of get to the creator of MWeb's point, I do agree in the fact that we have to find a solution to how maybe we can limit the file size of these inscriptions, or find a better way to stack the data that is being inscribed. That brings a whole another bones to pick kind of thing. But being the devil's advocate, there's good and there's bad. So for every improvement, you're going to have negatives and drawbacks. I would say it is a boost for Litecoin in a sense, because I do believe I saw Bitcoin's, the Satoshis per byte or Sats per byte, like right around over 1,000, like
Mm-hmm.
for a couple days straight, the last couple days. And that's a significant, like, I haven't seen it that high. And I don't think I've ever seen it that high, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. Because most of the Bitcoin that we see is exchanged on like exchanges. Most of Litecoin is exchanged through exchanges, so it never really hits the nodes per
Mm-hmm.
se, other than the exchanges nodes. But on Litecoin side, Litecoin is handling it actually very, very well. I think we saw it at the beginning of Litecoin's ordinals. We saw about, I want to say, upwards of like 100 lits per byte, which was still extremely high for Litecoin. Um, but Litecoin, in a sense, I feel could handle ordinals in a way better than I believe Bitcoin could handle ordinals, just because of how it was originally developed by the person who's kind of talking about it, retweeted the tweet, Satoshi Light. He sees that there can be things added and there can be value added. Of course, like we said, there is the negatives. It could be a little bit of clutter, but I do believe Litecoin has the capacity to actually flourish from it more so than the brother blockchain, the big brother blockchain.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. And what's been your role with the ordinals? I mean, you've already shared some of this with us, but just continue. Just tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, yeah. So currently, basically what I found, Indigo, I saw his tweet talking about, hey, who can fork this over to Litecoin? And I started to work on it a little bit. It was still a little bit beyond me at
Mm-hmm.
that point. And I noticed that Anthony had already had almost a working product within a couple of days. And I was like, holy smokes. So got connected with him, and then ended up basically just trying to help drive some traffic from, I would say, the rage over on Bitcoin to like, hey, this can also be done on Litecoin and can be done at a fraction of the cost, quicker, cheaper, and relatively the same way. So it's people who are coming from Bitcoin could do it easily on Litecoin. So currently, what we ended up doing was I ended up founding Litecoin Labs with a couple other people. And basically what we decided to do was try to educate people on how ordinals work on the Litecoin blockchain specifically. There's a few differences, and we can get into that. And then also try to just drive more traffic over to Litecoin. I do believe Litecoin is one of the a sleeper for sure, and I saw the potential that ordinals brought with it, with how cheap everything was going to be. And yeah, so basically trying to bring people over, and it was a huge success right away. I think to date there is like the layer 2, like Omni layer and whatnot, that's around, and they had some NFTs on there, but this collection, we had 100 of these, like kind of like CryptoPunks in a way, but styled Litecoin version with backgrounds of Litecoin and the logos, and this collection had some of the, like, right now it's done secondary volume around half a $1 million.
Wow.
That's traded across Litecoin and traded across Ethereum as well. Yeah. So some users decided to vault or wrap their Litecoin ordinal, this is all doable as well, which can also bring more scalability to Litecoin than we really know as well, by wrapping these assets onto other chains. And that's something that we might get into with the LTC-20 protocol, but I'm not going to try to push that too much until it's actually tested and tried. But that's currently what we're working on. And then the LTC-20 protocol is a movement that I kind of gave it a little test first. And then as soon as I saw that, Litecoin can do it too, I knew in my head, as soon as it was on Bitcoin, I'm like, yeah, Litecoin can do this. So it's just one of those things. And I was like, yeah, if Bitcoin can do it, Litecoin can probably do it a little bit better.
Indeed.
That kind of way. So that's what we went for. And we posted about it, kind of showed the proof of how the transactions work, deployed the first token. We call it a token. It's technically worthless, arbitrary. People are trading it OTC right now, which is beyond me. It's so funny. Yeah. But yeah, we created that. It's called Light. And there's 84. We kept the same number as Litecoin, 84 million of them. And the max amount that you could inscribe per transaction to get to that 84, it was a fair launch, fair mint, anybody could go after it, was 4,000 per transaction. So there's some people that got a pretty good portion, but there is a whole community of people, especially a lot of the Chinese community, came in overnight when I was sleeping and just cleaned house on tons of these tokens. So it was really fun to see.
Are they person-to-person trades at this point? Like wallet to wallet?
Yeah, so there is a way to send them. It's you have to have Ord Wallet, which allows you, because currently what you need for Litecoin is you need a BIP 84 address, which is like a native SegWit address.
Yeah.
Bitcoin uses a little bit of Taproot in there, but Litecoin Core doesn't have Taproot integrated fully yet. So that's the difference that we have between the two. So it's not very big, but there's only a few wallets that really kind of support Litecoin's version of the SegWit ordinal to be able to transfer without spending the UTXO. And what I mean by the UTXO is a cluster of 10,000 Latoshis, and your inscription is on one of those Latoshis. And it could be on one of those Latoshis. The reason there's 10,000 is it's written into the software is it gives it a padding in case you spend the UTXO.
That was a big question I had.
Yep.
Yeah, yes. if I could on that. So I use standard cold storage, Trezor, those type of devices, but I also run a node. And I'm like, how do we even transfer this data without losing it? And I was curious because it wasn't like I got 0, 0, 7 zeros and a 1 when I got my ordinal. It was actually larger than that. I'm like, so you're mentioning it's padded. That makes more sense to me. And then I'm like, how do I not send this except that you can coin control in the node wallet? I think what I did was set up 3 independent addresses, each to receive one of my ordinals, and that's where they're stored. So to me, that's the best user experience I can get at this point. And maybe, well, probably it's inevitable that if this continues to grow, we will have a better user experience. But is that about right? Am I correct on that, or is there another way?
Yeah, you're basically spot on. I would say the correct way, the safest way would to be install the ORD software,
Which I
using
didn't do
Rust
it.
Lang.
Yeah, I did not do that. Yeah.
Yep. Which is okay, because you can technically hold the ordinals in your core wallet or like Electrum Litecoin wallet. I would just be careful at this point of sending it unless you really know how to make sure that your UTXOs stay in the same order and then also don't get spent. So using coin control is a way to kind of combat that. But that is something that there is a few groups, development groups, that are actually working towards, is creating more so a non-node wallet that is like nodes on servers that will allow you to basically specialize in ORD wallet so you can use the inscriptions back and forth. I'd say we're probably like hopefully a month out from that.
Wow.
I'm hoping sooner. I'd like to push sooner. I think that maybe the conception of the LTC-20 and how it's kind of taken off, thus on like the Bitcoin version and the Litecoin version, that it might kind of speed up the process and be like, hey, like we really need something, because we do. And there is stuff being built. It's just a matter of how much manpower we have and how many hours of sleep we can get before we tire out, kind of thing.
Yeah, good deal.
Yes, you're spot on with that. Okay.
I mean, bring it on. The user experience will need it. And I think, very smart people are already working on it per your suggestion. We kind of talked about it already, the Bitcoin ordinal versus the Litecoin ordinal. You mentioned that Litecoin does it better than Bitcoin, which I think that's a fact. I know it doesn't make some people happy, and it doesn't even negate the fact that Bitcoin is an important entity in our environment. I mean, of course, it's immensely important. Bitcoin is, of course, immensely important, but to concede that Litecoin does a lot better, I don't know how we can argue with that, really. Then there's the maximalists, really, yes, of course, and we're not here to talk about that. But this started on Bitcoin, the ordinals for Bitcoin, did you see some positive? I mean, clearly there's stuff being built now on Litecoin, so there's already a reception for this. But did you see some real hard-nosed Bitcoiners like reject this totally, or did you see them like, yeah, cool, let's use Litecoin too? Like, what were you seeing with that kind of divisiveness between maximalists versus the old school Bitcoiners and Litecoiners holding hands with ordinals? Yeah. Oh gosh, if we could just get back to that holding hands, yeah, that'd be great. I think Litecoin and Doge are doing that better now than Bitcoin and Litecoin, but I digress. I would say most definitely, for sure. Yeah, that's a great topic and great questions. So coming from the Ordinals protocol on Bitcoin right away, because that's where it was and that's kind of how I was following it. Right away, I would say the maximalists had their thoughts, rightfully so, because we saw the problem that persisted this last week, and we saw that Bitcoin transactions became expensive than it's ever been before, and actually the Bitcoin mempool, so the blockchain dropped about, it was like 3,000 transactions, which is like Litecoin hasn't done that. so like there to go. I can see where the maximalists on the Bitcoin side of things were like, hey, I don't know, like it could really be spam. And in a sense, it has turned out to be spam currently. I do think that it's super cool when you have like a full website or a game or something cool on it. Like, that's neat. Currently, I would say the tokens have been a little bit spammy with allowing anybody to create, but that's truly the decentralization of it all.
the
True.
free will for anybody to create anything they want. So that's not going to go away, and that's one of the hardcore values that everything is founded on. Now, when it came to Litecoin, I would say that we did have some Litecoin maximalists right away, as well as say like, hey, we're seeing what's going on with Bitcoin. We're seeing the transactions and the outputs and just the spam. I don't know if this is going to be a good idea.
For
And
Litecoin.
at first
Yeah.
I thought, yeah. And then, yes, at first I thought, yeah. And I was agreeing. And then I really kind of watched it over the first couple of days where like right away, like the first 100,000 just inscribed almost instantly. And even in the last couple of days, the first like couple 300,000, or excuse me, 200,000 in the last couple of days that have been inscribed have been insanely fast as well. And Litecoin has handled it extremely well, and it hasn't actually got up over 100 Latoshis. I think the highest I saw it with blocks being with transactions and blocks being fully filled is like, I want to say 21 Latoshis, which is still a fraction of the cost of what it's costing for 21 Satoshis on Bitcoin. And there's the fallout. I think Litecoin is going to be more accepting of it because they realize that it's actually cheaper and it can actually become something without ruining what's already been created. Now, what Litecoin has that Bitcoin, could have but doesn't have is MWEB.
Yes.
And MWEB, you can send MWEB transactions and be completely separate from basically all the ordinals transactions that are happening. That is something that I would think that Bitcoin might, maybe consider. And I feel like that might give a boost.
No, they have Liquid and they don't need
Bitcoin,
it.
But
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
There's
But
second layers and third layers. Yeah.
It's, oh my gosh. But yeah, speaking of like the second layers and third layers and just the true base layer, what we're seeing with these tokens is these BRC-20s and the LTC-20s is truly amazing in the fact that now for the first time, I'm not sure why it took us almost a decade to do this, there's getting attention of like Binance and OKX. Started on the Bitcoin side of things. We see some of the marketers being like, how can I learn about Litecoin Ordinals? And we've been reaching out to them, explaining,
awesome, good,
talking. And
yeah,
it's really cool to see just people somewhat getting more interested in the two chains that maybe weren't as interesting in the last bull run, other than just, higher price and them being the grandfathers of the other cryptos. I think this puts more competition on a lot of the, I would say, younger blockchains, younger with quotation marks, Ethereum, all the layer 2s built on Ethereum, and those as well. Because now technically we can have smart contracts in a way, but PBSTs that run ordinals that do relatively the same arbitrary data and through points and endpoints that say Ethereum could do. And Ethereum might be able to do it a little bit faster and a little more scalable, but this definitely gives a level of competition for that. And I feel like if people actually take the time to learn, they're going to be pleasantly surprised of what this means for the fungibility of both blockchains, how it's still decentralized, still working full-fledged. It's tested and tried once more, and it's still withstanding it all. So it's just another testament to, where are you going to put your time? Where are you going to start learning about things? And actually, are you going to deep dive? Are you going to get into it? I would love to see more developers get into like Bitcoin and Litecoin. We need more developers in Litecoin for sure. It's I'm spending a lot of time just trying to relearn how the client works and really trying to deep dive into that. And I can say there's not a lot of documentation out there other than just like a few things here and there from 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it's I would love to see more people get in, and I hope that this sparks some interest in developers, and because we will need developers here if we're going to support more mass adoption and more mass movement, aside from the chain being as good as it already is. So that's not going away. Now this just adds a whole new playing field. This can create more jobs, like where they're talking about losing jobs in the economy, but here Bitcoin and Litecoin are creating jobs right now. You know, how funny is that? I love it.
It's terrific. And I think maybe if I could also quote one of your recent tweets, which was exciting to read as an outsider, right? As a non-developing person in the ecosystem of Litecoin. You said yesterday, I have fallen in love once more with Bitcoin and Litecoin. I will post a thread soon that will explain why ordinals might actually take these networks to an inconceivable level, rocket.eth. Can you elaborate on that? I know you haven't published your thread yet,
Of course.
but share along those lines. I think that's quite a statement.
Yeah, it is a statement, and I thought about it like, do I really actually say this? Because even online, your words are going to be held accountable in some form or extent. And the sheer fact of watching the amount of addresses move in and be created on the network, like what was it, like 500,000 in the last couple of days created on like Litecoin? That's like bull market levels of addresses
we're in
being
a bear
created.
Yeah,
exactly. And so seeing that, looking at how the market is playing into effect with the fair market value of Litecoin and how the network usage, the hash rate going through the roof, the halving is coming up.
Yes, it is.
And it's one of those things where regardless, Litecoin with the halving and with the hash rate going up would do very well. And this adds just that extra kicker, that extra push, that if people weren't sure, that if they actually look into it and they see the value behind it, they see how now businesses can actually be built on these things using this arbitrary data sequences, creating collectibles, creating tokenomics, tokens, and all that can, what OKX are doing, what Binance are doing is they're working with some of the Bitcoin ones right now to create like spot trading for these things, which then boosts the network in a whole, which is just, I believe, is going to be that next kind of inconceivable level that is really going to draw more market value into these older generation of coins, aside from the fact that they're already standard true, like Litecoin has been online 100% of the time.
Yep.
And through this ordinal transition that we're kind of heading into, despite it being cluttered on the blockchain, Litecoin has stayed up 100% of the time, and it's done so at least 10 to 20 times better than I would say Bitcoin has in the terms of how it's handling the spam. You can argue the fact that Bitcoin has more spam, but if you're still watching the transactions come through, you're seeing that Litecoin is processing them so much faster and so much cheaper, to the point where Litecoin on its chart, looking at its fair market value, its hash rate all the way through the roof, its halving coming up, this new feature of ordinals coming, regardless of its spam, the amount of users that are coming in, I would say I've met about 20 new developers that have never touched Litecoin that have started kind of tinkering in Litecoin recently. And that goes to say there's probably a bunch more that I don't know, that there's a language barrier or something that people are talking in other networks being like, hey, let's get on this. That's really what we're seeing here. And despite what's happening with our economy and everything, it's I don't know, man. It's loading up and the gunpowder's sitting there and we're just getting ready.
You're bringing light and air into this terrible environment right now. It's wonderful. It's good. This is great information and very good information. So I hope all of this continues to move forward, and I think it will, despite me. It already has, despite me, right? I want to.
Yes.
You mentioned OmniLite. I was aware of OmniLite. I launched a few arbitrary, frivolous tokens on OmniLite as a second layer to Litecoin. Compare OmniLite, and I think there could have been, by the way, concern for congestion and spam with that too, and we're okay. That's going on 2 years, I think, this fall. since we've had OmniLite
Mm.
capabilities with NFTs and tokens on top of Litecoin in the second layer. But compare OmniLite and the LTC-20 token. And I really just do want to talk about LTC-20 tokens because it's brand new. I'm thinking of it as kind of like an ERC-20 is to Ethereum and LTC-20 is to Litecoin.
Yeah, and I think that methodology of thinking about that being the ERC20 to Ethereum and the LTC20 to Litecoin is the correct way to think about that. So OmniLite being a layer 2, yes, I guess it does help get more adoption into the Litecoin network on a layer 2 level, which is still good. And I think we should still use OmniLite. I think it's there and I think it's good. I really do. There's its use cases and there's its reasons. And again, there's another reasons. It's brand new. And as we can get more developers in here, they'll realize, hey, we can do things over here as well. Yeah. Now, on the LTC-20 side of things, it's on the base layer. So any transaction that you're actually doing is completely benefiting miners. It's on the layer 1, it's actually benefiting the coin directly real time. And that is what I believe is considered like the difference between OmniLite and then, of course, the LCT20 Ordinals standard. And it's kind of as simple as that. I love OmniLite as well. I didn't hear about OmniLite until probably about 4 or 5 months ago, to be honest with you.
That doesn't surprise me.
I remember reading about it a while back.
Yeah.
But I just kind of got caught up on it right as soon as I heard about like the first ordinal kind of theory being pitched. What was it, like December of last year? So
I feel like this just came out of nowhere. What was I like you with OmniLite, where this has been brewing for months and I just wasn't aware about it, and now we're getting aware of it? Or did this literally just kind of come out overnight?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. Okay. There's been talks in forums and kind of like the Bitcoin discussion area from Casey Rodomore kind of proposing the idea and kind of explaining what he was testing. And that's been going on, from my knowledge. I read the first kind of post around December of 2022. And then within like 1 month of that, in January, it started actually gaining traction. And I think they uploaded like the first version towards the end of January. I don't know the dates to be exact, so take it with a grain of salt. And it took about, I would say, until mid to late February for, I would say, what we call the degen community of Ethereum to realize, oh, we can have NFTs on Bitcoin. And I think that honestly started a little bit of a movement, because the people that we've seen kind of trying to use ordinals have never set up a node in their life. And this is, which is awesome. I'm glad they're coming over. I'm glad they're
and on Ethereum you can't run a node.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's you could run a validator on Ethereum, but it's not the same. Not entirely the same. So that is kind of what kind of got the attention a little bit. And then all of a sudden people started tweeting, oh my goodness, I made it into the first 1,000 inscriptions on Bitcoin. This is crazy. And what really took it off was there was a single trade of this Bitcoin punk for an actual crypto punk. So the equivalent was like around $100,000 in value, which is very significant. And that caught the eye of a lot of people. And then all the way from then end of February to March, like it went to 1 million insanely fast on Bitcoin. And well, not 1 million, excuse me. It went to like 700,000. And then the BRC-20 protocol started getting kind of announced, and then it kind of took off from there. So basically that's kind of the lowdown on how it kind of just came about, and it was kind of brewing. And then end of February, March, it just slammed. And
yeah, it did.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's young. I think this is going to be a very valuable talk for people to access because there's a lot of spaces on Twitter, and admittedly, I haven't been in on a lot of those conversations. But there's still, this is very unknown and really new for a lot of people. So this is super valuable today. Let's go. Well, maybe since we're still on ordinals, do you know anything about doginals? Of course, Dogecoin. We had Dogecoin on our last
Yes.
episode. Dogecoin and Litecoin. There's a wonderful relationship between the two over the course of time. Um, it's a
Hmm.
LTC is a BTC and a Doge is an LTC in terms of code with some variants. But what's going on with doginals? Is it, can we do it? I've heard the word, and I think it was Indigo that mentioned doginals, but I don't know if there's anything
Yes.
happening with that.
Yes, it can be done. A lot of the tools have not fully been like there's a public one, but there was some controversy right away as there was a couple developers and a developer team, and then a couple of solo developers kind of competing to get the first version out there because technically it can be replicated. So somebody could go along and make, let's just say, Ordinals v2 and say, hey, inscribe on this, and it could index the whole that those indexes if it was built. So it can technically be built again, but now the rule in, I guess, in all retrospect is, first movers advantage, first come first serve. This was the first product launch, and there is some a couple months ago there was some like debates which one was the first one, and one blockchain, or excuse me, one Doginals developer and developer team actually kind of blocking out and not indexing inscriptions that were actually pushed on there from the other. So it was kind of a bad relationship, and I feel terrible because that's not what we want.
Yeah.
And of course, we want people to be holding the hands, but there's people saw the money involved after seeing it go to Bitcoin and seeing it go to Litecoin. They realized, holy smokes, Dogecoin is a meme coin. This could work, and so it is on there now. And I would say, to be honest with you, I don't know which version is being used, which developer team won out. I don't know because I haven't touched it. But I have seen inscriptions and I have seen collections, and somebody I saw one live inscription service that actually had like a Doge 20 thing that was like, I'm not sure if it was legitimate or they just put it up there to kind of draw excitement, or if they've even tested it. I don't know. So that's the case. But the one thing with Doginals is the data that you can put on a Doge. I don't even know what the lowest form of a Doge is.
I
Off
don't
the top
either.
of my head, I really don't. But
Are they as
the
divisible?
data
I
is
don't know.
so small.
Yeah.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I really don't. But the ordinal data is like, you have to have it. I don't even know the bytes. It's got to be like something under like 50 bytes or something really crazy, which is relatively extremely small. And otherwise, it kind of, I'm not sure what really happens, but that's kind of the drawback and the limit. But yep.
Their block time is faster too. Does that change
Right.
anything?
Yeah, the block time is faster.
It's every minute, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, it would. It would essentially make it, in theory, cheaper and faster. I did hear that there was some tests that it actually was comparative to Litecoin on a scale of price for inscription, and I don't know the background and the in depth on how that works. But comparative wise, again, this could be completely rumor, and I could be hearing steam from somebody that it was roughly on the same level price point for inscribing data as Litecoin, maybe a little bit cheaper, but not as much as a difference from Bitcoin to Litecoin.
Interesting. One more question I have, and then we're going to move on to kind of pivot here in a minute. But and this was discussed with David Burkett on our first episode. What happens when I take an ordinal and I send it into MWEB? And then what happens when I send it to MWEB? Is it still there? Is it obfuscated? Is it lost? And if that, uh, if I'd pull out the ordinal, if I can use this language, pardon me if I'm not articulating this successfully,
Mm-hmm.
but if I pull it out, is it the same? Is it recognizable? Was it scrubbed? Again, pardon my ignorance. I'm just curious. And
Mm-hmm.
David didn't really know either.
Yeah. So from my understanding, the way Ordinals, the protocol works is it's inscribing the Latoshis onto an address that is for Litecoins respective, like a native SegWit, a BIP 84.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works with the other version of SegWit. There's technically two versions of SegWit. There's like an old version and a newer version.
Mm-hmm.
But from my knowledge, if you were to send it to an MWEB address, it is gone. You're not going to get it out. It's incompatible, which is sad. Maybe in the future we can mess around with it and get it to work. But as far as it works right now, the only address you can truly send it to are other SegWit addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And really, what you really want to do is just to make sure that any address that you're sending it to needs to be a SegWit address, and it also needs to have a wallet that has coin control and UTXO kind of blocking features.
Right.
Um,
So
yeah,
we can
'cause
purge ordinals through sending to MWEB.
in a way, yes. I do believe that the block index, will display the address that it's on. It's just it's technically burned. The data will be there, and it will be kind of indexed, but there's no way that you will ever see that kind of recircle in a way.
Interesting.
To my knowledge, and this could be wrong, but this is what we've tested, and this is what we've seen so far.
Interesting.
So,
I appreciate your comments on it. It's helpful.
yeah.
It's interesting. Let's go to kind of some of the more popular items in ordinals, and we mentioned the Litecoin punks, and then there's Litecoin punks, and then there's the Litecoin punks on ordinals punks.biz. There's like versions of them, which I think those were the Ethereum punks. Can you differentiate those for me?
Yeah.
How do we know what punks
Yeah.
are which? Which punks are which?
Yeah, that's a good question. I remember seeing them a while back, and I do believe they're punks on Litecoin. It's just a matter of the Litecoin punks, the term that we branded from Litecoin Labs, was the first like curated collection of these punks that actually kind of established themselves in the first 1,000 inscriptions. So there's people that inscribed a few punks beforehand and inscribed like, text, and, the MWEB was the first one, and then these rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that. But since these have come out in the first 1,000, there's been other takes on different variations of punks on the chain.
Okay.
So it's a matter of how I would say the business or the organization behind it is categorizing them,
yeah,
and how they're solving that. So in our example, if you were to go to litecoinlabs.xyz and look
mm-hmm.
at our gallery,
yeah,
you'll see that our punks are actually curated, and it will tell you the inscription number and basically kind of where they are located on the blockchain. In our case, a lot of our holders have chosen to vault them
mm-hmm.
and send them to a Litecoin address, Litecoin wallet, that the keys are locked onto an Ethereum smart contract.
Okay.
And then they're actually used to be traded back and forth. You're basically trading the keys is what you're doing to that wallet that has that inscription. And that is truly kind of what helped kind of give some more market value. But before we had that, like some of the sales that we were seeing, like traded peer-to-peer,
mm-hmm.
Not from us, but peer-to-peer from others after they received them, was like something like 50 Litecoin
wow.
for like one of
wow.
these, which is a significant amount. But yes.
Yeah, it seems so. I think the .biz ones were the Ethereum CryptoPunks that maybe were just brought over by that team or somebody. I don't know. That's another thing too. You could just steal images and mint them. But I don't know if it's the same people. I have no idea. I have no idea. But then the Litecoin ones, which I think are aesthetically different with the kind of the pixelated L's in the background, which look actually really kind of attractive. Those are more, that's what you've been involved with, or at least your platform has released those, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell me more about Litecoin Labs. Did you start it? Is it a co-op? How long has it been around? What are you planning to do with it, or how's it evolving?
Yeah. Uh, Good questions. Good questions. These needed to be answered anyway. So yeah, as soon as Ordinals came out and got forked to Litecoin, uh, I decided that, I've been on Ethereum for a while. I've been doing some development work and kind of helping people integrate like domain names with ENS domains, building websites fully decentralized. And I kind of wanted to make a little bit of a pivot and learn something more about another chain. And this was an opportunity to really kind of deep dive into a chain that I've loved for technically years, and it's just kind of been stagnant. Like, yeah, I have my node running, and I have this, and here's that, yeah, maximalist kind of thing, and so Litecoin Labs was founded with a couple people of mine. I'm not sure. Slick is one of their names, and then Brody is the other one. And these people are other kind of lighter devs, like a little bit of back end, a little bit of front end, and then of course some ordinals, and then the blockchain itself. And basically what we're trying to do, and what we're like the future that we're doing, is we're really trying to help develop this ordinals protocol and show people what it can be used for fully. And whenever new things come out on Bitcoin, or if we're able to figure something out and push it out on Litecoin, before that, we're going to try to do that. And, we might be pushing a little bit of boundaries with it. And there might be some backlash, and, that's okay, because at the end of the day, like, it will grow, and it will just show kind of like, this is what we should be doing. This is maybe not what we should be doing, and get people more aware of actually the inconceivable level that this could take these networks, really.
Interesting. You mentioned Doom on or carried via Ordinal. Very interesting. I know you did a Taproot
Yes.
Wizards Ordinal, which I think is an inscription. I wrote it down, 400449. I saw Flappy Chicken. I think that was the first one I did, which was kind of impressive. I'm like, wow, it's like a primitive game actually on the blockchain, like sort of crazy. How many games are you seeing?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, tell me more.
Oh gosh. So I would say, oh goodness, there's probably a couple thousand games already inscribed. I would say there's probably like a good 100 games on Litecoin inscribed, and probably around 1,000 or so on Bitcoin inscribed. And it's quite crazy. For example, there was a whole Doom level inscribed, which is honestly very impressive for how you think Doom would run. Like, seriously, that can run on a Satoshi? Are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
that's wild.
I
What,
know,
what
I know.
inscription number is that? How do I play Doom on Litecoin?
Ah, let's see here. I'll probably have to share that
That's fine. We can
offline.
do
I'm
it
sure
after
if you
the show.
typed in
Yeah,
on Twitter,
sure.
I'm sure if you type it in Twitter, Doom Ordinal, it will pop up. But
Wow.
we do actually on our website, Litecoin Labs, we have an arcade where you can actually go through a bunch of different games. Like, there's like 40 different games there that are inscribed onto ordinals. Some of them being Litecoin ordinals, and then some of them being Bitcoin ordinals. Some other people developed them. We gave them credit, and then we developed a few ourselves as well. Like Flappy Chicken was one of the ones that, or Flappy Chicken, excuse me, is the one that we put on Litecoin as the first game, and that's around inscription number. Like, I think the first one is like 2000 something, like really early 2000. And to be fair with you, I don't know which wallet I have it in right now. I have a few others in a few other wallets, but I don't remember. I can't find the wallet that I had it in, so it might be lost forever. But yes.
Wow. Moon chickens too. How are the moon chickens doing? Or how many collections do you have? I know about moon chickens, and I know about Litecoin punks, your variety. What other NFTs or ordinals are on your site?
Yeah, so the Litecoin punks are I would say Genesis collection. Those are the ones before the 1000. We covered that, and then we have these moonbirds, moon chickens, whatever you want to call them. I guess the terminology that we carried over was moonbirds, and there's 9,200 of these.
Moonbirds, yes, pardon me.
significantly more. Yes, you're good. Significantly more supply of these, and um, kind of our goal with this is to not like, we're not really trying to like oversell these, and really we've been giving them away to communities, giving them away to people who have been sticking around in the actual community of ordinals. To be fair, we've only given away probably like 200 of them.
Yeah.
Of the 9,000, and we're still planning on giving probably another, I would say, 400 before we kind of push maybe like a $5-10 sale per inscription. And really what we'd like to do is, if time allows and things progress, we'd love to integrate one of these first tokens, one of the LTC-20s, to be used to actually purchase these inscriptions. That I mean, you could use Litecoin if you wanted or whatever, but you could also use a lower form of Litecoin on an arbitrary value token, something that's technically worthless.
And the tethers are established.
Yes.
Yes. Well, very cool. Very cool. I have two more here. Well, maybe three more questions. And then we did get a few Q&As, which we can go over to. Are you okay with time?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, very good. So we kind of alluded to this already, but my question would be, it is a bear market. Sentiment is down. We both agree on that. For the United States, the regulatory environment is murky, unclear at best, hostile at worst. What's your outlook for the US or other jurisdictions just with the cryptocurrency space? I'll say it super broadly. And maybe, if you wish, to differentiate the cryptocurrency space from maybe the Bitcoin and the Litecoin, something like that.
Yeah, I would most definitely do that. I think you hit that on the head. I'll start off with that. Actually, we saw it was like one of the Commodities Exchange Commission that regulates kind of commodities. It's different from the FDIC and the SEC. They came out with a post, what was it? Maybe a month or two ago. And it stated basically in this post, when they were filing a lawsuit actually against Coinbase. And it kind of stated in that lawsuit that the only thing that they see as commodities are basically Bitcoin and Litecoin. So
significant.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard something along the lines of, in the next like 10 days, I think the SEC is supposed to actually bring some regulation front.
Okay.
I think that was just a newsline title that I saw somewhere. So, that's probably just somebody getting clickbait. But I think the way our U.S. economy is headed is one of those scary things. If we look at least in 2008, and I will say, like, I'm younger, so I haven't really experienced a lot of the turmoil. Like in 2008, I was 8 years old. I'm 23 now.
Yeah.
And we had the housing bubble. But first, it started with the Washington Bank, the big one, really folding, and that was hundreds, billions of dollars. And then it kind of trickled into this like little snowman effect. There's like a graph that you can look at where you can see the size in circles of that bank, and then you can see kind of the little banks following it, and then all these like really little like snowflakes that fall after that. And they call it the snowman kind of tower effect with the banking and how things fall. Well, what we're currently seeing is we're seeing that again. I think we're on our third or fourth like full failure in banks with I think it's, First Republic being the most recent one in the last week or so. Yeah. And that's where the snowman is happening. So first we had Silicon Valley, and that's a little smaller than the Washington Bank from 2008 that collapsed. That started
Signature Bank
everything in 2008.
At issue too.
Yes. And we're seeing that snowman effect, and we have the 3 layers of the snowman built now as of First Republic actually collapsing. We also have the Fed launching the Fed Now program. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And was it the next couple
You
months
can
here.
remind us, but yes, I'm generally aware of it, but remind us and our listeners
Yeah,
what that is about.
I'm goodness gracious. Yeah. I mean, everybody with dual citizenship right now is, panning out pretty well. But it's one of those things where the US is almost on its default ceiling. We're seeing the bank failures. We're seeing hard regulation on crypto. We're seeing, actually, I shouldn't say hard regulation. We're saying regulation that changes on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
No set in stone regulation.
Yes.
If we'd have regulation regardless of what it is, it would actually be better. Even if it hurt, as long as it's set in stone, it would actually be.
Yeah, it'd be a clear signal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I do believe I do believe the US is completely behind on crypto, and they have been. Other nations, other countries have been on top of it and always have been. And what we're seeing is our biggest exchanges in the United States getting pushed out of the United States.
Which is not good at all. That's really bad for liquidity for Americans. Yeah. Or United States citizens. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the scary downside of that all. So I do have faith in America still. I mean, I have to. Mm-hmm. Granted, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world right now that is really dictating our economy. Mm-hmm. The BRICS nations forming being one of those. The yuan, the Chinese yuan being used for a lot of petrol trade, mm-hmm. Which was primarily all traded in the United States dollar. And I would say the United States dollar does have, I think it still has a ton of strength. It's still used like 80% of the time. The yuan is slightly gaining on that.
Right, yeah.
But it's going to show that the once great empire that I would say the United States had is unfortunately, crumbling, and it's getting really hard to solve. And, defaulting on the debt ceiling, I don't really fully know. I'm not an economist if that's going to help us or not. But those aside, how is that going to affect crypto? Well, if you're an American, I'm very sorry. It might be a little bit rough for us for a while. Puerto Rico is looking pretty good. You can actually get there.
Yes.
As an American citizen. They got some good.
I know there was always the income tax deletion incentive. Yes.
Yes. But I think that with the opening, the more open the rest of the world is, you got to think about this: is the U.S. can fail, but that doesn't mean that our cryptocurrency is going to fail. It might be a stumble of liquidity of what we can actually use in at least here in America. But the rest of the world's going to be trading it still, and it's still going to keep on going. We've seen countless countries try to ban it, countless countries just tear it to shreds, and it's come unbanned, and it's being used more so than ever. And you got to think about this: is we have a generation gap basically, with like 80% of the wealth in the United States is held in the generation that might pass away in the next 10 years or so. Yeah. And we have now a generation that's younger than me. What do they call it? I don't even know, Gen Z, a little less than Gen Z. Forget what that one is. That's coming up. And what have they known? They've known everything is online. Everything is digital. They've seen the machines for buy Bitcoin, buy Litecoin, buy Ethereum in their stores, in their Walmarts, in their gas station. So it's going to withstand the test of time. As of right now, like it'll be rocky for a little bit, but you also got to know that we're coming up on Litecoin's halving cycle. We're also coming up on Bitcoin's halving cycle. I do think right now is a time where, it's okay to save, but it's also a time to, just look around and see what you can do. Other than your, standard American dollar. If we look at gold is trading as high as it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And I mean, what's the digital gold, So there's that, and that's all I really have on that question.
Yeah, and physical silver is bizarrely undervalued, in my opinion. Just like digital silver is bizarrely undervalued. But I'm not going to go into those because, to be honest, it's speculation for me too. But I think we all kind of notice these bizarre facts, and very strange. I'm going to refer to another tweet, which you released on 3/16. Sorry, but the next NFT bull run is Ordinals BTC dominance, but LTC will have value as well. Laugh at me if you want. You can thank me in the next 2 to 3 years cycle. So what do you mean by this?
Gosh, you really went deep dive in here. I like it.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was actually the tweet that as soon as I looked at the amount of addresses coming in and seeing that I compared to actually the last bull markets and seeing how it actually compared on scale to the amount of Ethereum addresses, and Ethereum was the prime mover for the NFT market that we saw explode in the digital art market. After seeing the amount of addresses and actually kind of almost tracking these addresses because you can tell that what the addresses are being created. You can see that SegWit addresses are being created on Litecoin, and you can see that Taproot addresses are being created on Bitcoin. So you can tell that these addresses are being created for Ordinals and for these protocols. It's already got support from some of the huge brands in I would say huge brands, huge organizations in the bigger blue chip area of the NFT space on Ethereum, that being Yuga Labs, DGods, and On-Chain Monkey. On-Chain Monkey being probably my favorite one. Danny, a legend over there. He's always innovating, and he's willing to test the boundaries. And that's one of the things is, I don't know how serious he is, but he did, I don't remember if it was a tweet or if it was in a space that they said that he's aware of Litecoin's ordinals and he's looking on it, and they're just they're looking. So it's cool to see that. And I think Charlie Lee rocks is the new age term for it, is using a profile picture that's of an on-chain monkey, which is one of those ones on Ethereum that we saw is now actually pegged to the Bitcoin Ordinals protocol 1-to-1 in a way that they did that actually not a lot of other NFT spaces have actually done. But to get back to that tweet, with the amount of addresses coming in, seeing that directly they were coming for the Ordinals protocol, the amount of inscribing that's going on in a bear market, the amount of money that's flowing in from other blockchains into these blockchains on a daily value is like it's beyond me considering where we are at an economic standard. I'm trying to turn my head around, where's everybody getting this money to throw around when we're going through what we're going through. But yeah, it's here to stay. It's being developed. There's tons of marketplaces on the BTC side of things. The LTC side of things is coming. I think Lightverse is working on something. That's basically it with that. Is take it for what you want.
Good deal. Well said. Before we hit the Q&A, just a quick announcement. We are releasing the Litecoin Coffee Club Batch 2 of 100% Honduras. It's going to be, the landing page is live if you go to litecoincoffeeclub.com. You can also visit it at the 84 Million shop. We roasted a batch with our friends House Roots in Granada Hills, California, in the San Fernando Valley back in January. And the first batch, our pilot batch, it was received quite well. So we're glad to be releasing another version. It's not a Colombian, it's not an Ethiopian, it's still the Honduran coffee, just batch 2. So if you missed the first one or you loved the first one, now's an opportunity for folks. I did send an email out today about that, and the landing page is live. So between now and May 14th, it's going to be a complete match with batch 1 in terms of price. After the 14th, it will go up slightly. It's going to be a small batch production again, like the first one, but it is open now. So if you're interested in that, please visit litecoincoffeeclub.com or the 84million.com shop. And sir, for a thank you for coming. I hope you like coffee. I'll be glad to send you a bag, but we'll do that offline. Let's go to the Q&As. We did get a few. Let's see if any more came in. I'm not sure if I gave folks enough time. We just have one from Animal Litecoin. He said, can you show us a live demo on how to deploy a new LTC-20 token? So we can't really do that here. And I'm not going to task you with creating video content when we're offline, but
Yeah.
maybe you can address that. How do you build them, or is there a resource Animal could use to go forward?
Yeah. Yeah. So the way it works is it's quite simple. As long as you follow the format from the form that I posted on Gitbooks, it's litecoinlabs.gitbooks.io. I can drop the link somewhere, but it's posted under the Litecoin Punks Twitter, and it goes to the Gitbooks and it tells you basically what you need to do to deploy it. And you are simply putting the text, the deploy text with the max amount, the limit, the ticker of what you want to deploy, and then obviously declaring that it's an LTC-20 for indexing purposes. You save that one line into a text file, and then you would inscribe that text file. So I do know, as we're watching this, probably in the next, I would say, 10 hours or so, there should be a tool up. I guess I can plug it because it is the original forker of the Ordinals protocol onto Litecoin. It's going to be litescribe.io, and they'll have an easy way for you to actually just kind of declare what values you want for which and deploy a token. And there'll be an indexer where you can actually see if the token has technically already been deployed, because the way the protocol works is if there's a repeat deployment, it's only going to take the first one that's deployed. And that's the same way the tokens go, thus being the mint functions, is it only counts the first transactions, the first, in Light's case, 84 million tokens that have been minted. And anything after that is negated by, the first is first rule, kind of a self-explanatory rule, but that is kind of the brief way in how you do that.
Okay, very good. One more, we have Adler model. Hopefully I'm saying that correct. He's kind of got 4 questions, or this individual has 4 questions. Will LTC-20 be good for Litecoin? We kind of addressed that already. Maybe for Litecoin miners, ? Worse for Litecoin transactions, ? Would it be interchangeable with BRC-20s, ? Thank you.
So yes, no, yes. No, I'm joking. So yeah, it's going to be, it is good for Litecoin. It's something new. It's getting more people involved. It's getting more eyes and getting more developers. So yes, it's good for Litecoin. Is it creating more incentive for miners? Most definitely. As we can see, the hash rate's going up. I know that's probably primarily because of the halving coming up, but it's actually giving more incentive for miners to actually be mining, because the payouts might be a little bit more, thus actually putting them in the green for power consumption to whatever you want to call it, tokenomic costs, value costs that they're transferring it into. Yeah, it can clog transactions, but as we've seen with Litecoin has handled it perfectly fine, and I believe will continue to do so. I think we could see probably 10 times the amount of traffic that we're seeing right now, and Litecoin would still run without a doubt, no problem, with extremely cheap fees, like pennies on the dollar, as well. And then the last question, can it be used? Can you integrate it with BRC, LTC to BRC? There's some roundabout ways to do that, not necessarily directly. One way that you could do that is you could essentially deploy a BRC-20, wrap it, mint the supply, all the supply, so you're kind of the controller of it, mint or deploy an LTC-20, mint the whole supply, wrap it. So you wrap them both together into like a layer 2 contract on either, OmniLite, Bitcoin's layer 2 stacks, into Ethereum, and you could theoretically create a token that's pegged on all three of them. I'd also take that with a grain of salt, because truly, what are you trading at that point? Because if it's wrapped, it's not necessarily moving addresses, so it's not helping the network in any way, and it's not necessarily taking up any network transactions, or it's not benefiting the miners. So theoretically, like, yeah, in the future, it's probably possible, and maybe we'll see it, but I don't think it's something that we'll see too much of, to be honest.
Here, here. Very good. Well, those are the only two questions we had today. It was kind of short, but I didn't give people a whole lot of time, and I didn't allude to your account, which probably I should have done that. But anyway, we left the element of surprise stand. But very good. I appreciate you coming on. I think we covered a lot of ground. You're very well spoken. I hope you do more of these talks to speak of the benefits of Litecoin on other channels. So maybe this is, well, let me know. Send me the links when you're on somebody else's show. But we're certainly glad to have you.
Of course.
And any final thoughts? I mean, again, I can share your Twitter, Luke Wright Main. Is there any other links you wanted to provide? Any final closing thoughts you want to share with us?
Not too much. Just thanks for having me on. And this is a great podcast. This is my first time obviously being on it, but I've been listening to it for at least the last 3 podcasts consistently now. And there's a lot of valuable information and a lot of really technical stuff that if you take the time to listen, you'll find the value and you'll find the benefit. And I'm actually really excited to, look into this coffee that you got brewing over here as well. Those are my final thoughts.
Here, here. Well, thank you for your kindness. Again, thank you for coming. Yes, I'll be glad to send you a bag. And we'll see where we go with content. We're working on getting other folks on, but having you here today was certainly something very special. So thanks for your time. And we'll end with that. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to episode 4 with Rocket.eth, Luke Wright. Have a good one and be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.